if you continue to treat your job search as kind of this side hobby, you're going to be stuck where you are right now, even if this has worked for you in 2022, 2023, anytime before that, it is not going to work anymore. Not today, not in this new AI driven market, and not at this senior level. Half energy gets you half results. If you want a multi six-figure outcome, you just need to start thinking of job search as that $1 million project. Friends, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking all about big shifts that you need to make right now in order to get a $200K offer plus in 1 to 4 months in 2026 in this AI-driven job market. Now, this episode and this conversation has been inspired by really my clients, because at the time of me recording this episode, it is mid-January, and I have actually spent the last week working really closely with a number of our clients who are right now in the middle of negotiating their offers. In fact, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and yes, that does include the holiday period, we have had 10 offers, and they all range from low 6 figures all the way up to 200K. And we have a number of clients who have multiple offers right now. So I've been working with them really, really closely, negotiating, pushing both offers, and really working through a signing bonus and severance and stipends and all kinds of other benefits outside of their 200K salary that they're just south of 200K. So we're trying to get them to that point. And when I am looking at their journeys, they have gotten these offers in 1 month, 2 months, 2.5 months. And these are specific examples, 3 months, 4 months. And all of that has happened after they were trying on their own for months without really getting traction. Specific that I really want to talk about in this episode is that, yes, our clients have a very specific, proven, tested strategy that works on this market that we share with them. And I have talked about this on the podcast before. You can go back to episodes 3, 31, 35. They have this tested strategy. They have tested frameworks. They have tested scripts. They have advanced strategies. So things like impact preview decks, video, audio. They're using our AI tools that we have custom built for them to help them go faster, to help them practice. They have the coaching. They do practice in the community with AI tools, with our coach. And yes, all of that, the strategy and the tools and the frameworks and the scripts, all of that is important. But what I want for this episode to be about, and what I really want to focus on today, is that it's not just what they're doing to move fast. It's how they're doing it, how they're treating their time, how intentional we push them to be and they get with job search, how decisive they are, how proactive they are, whether it's with networking, with follow-ups, with asking for feedback twice a week in coaching. And they're getting feedback on everything. We get into so much detail together. They get feedback on a specific message they use to reach out, on a follow-up message they're going to use, on, hey, here's my plan using the frameworks that I already have in the program. Here's my plan going into this very important networking conversation, get feedback on my plan. So we get into a lot of nuance and feedback together. And they are showing up and they're getting this feedback. And honestly, the difference is also how in tune they get with what is going on in their head so that they can get out of that spiral. They can get out of the valley of despair, which is something we actually talk about quite often in the program, the valley of despair, and feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like you're not successful enough, that you're not moving fast enough, that this is never going to end. That is very common, but they have the tools and the support to get out of it so that every single day in job search, they show up as the best version of themselves. So in this episode, we're not going to focus on the strategy. Again, go back to episodes 3, 31, 35. We're not going to be talking about reaching out to hiring managers, booking meetings, practicing for interviews, positioning. if you have been listening to the podcast, you have heard me talk about this before. But what I really want to focus today on, part of job search that I don't believe we talk about enough, and part of success really that we don't talk about enough, and that is how you structure your time, how you approach your week, how you treat this experience, how you treat your job search when you actually want to make 200K and get that level of an offer. Because before we dive into the 3 big shifts, what I want to tell you right now is clients that we work with, clients in the program, in our coaching program, the Start Candidate, clients who go fast, and these clients that I have been helping the last couple of weeks to negotiate their offers, who got those offers in just a couple of months, the reason they go fast is because they don't dabble. They're not applying from their phones for jobs on their way home from work. They're not scrolling on LinkedIn and thinking, this looks interesting. After work tonight, if I have the energy and the time, I'll apply. Because this type of dabbling energy, if I have the time, if I feel like it, I don't really have, I'm tired, so I'll just click on easy apply and maybe I'll get an interview. This type of energy, this type of thinking, this type of approach to job search is not how you're going to get a 200K offer in 1 to 4 months. And another thing I want for you to hear before we dive in is that even if this has worked for you in 2022, 2023, anytime before that, it is not going to work anymore. Not today. Not in this new AI-driven market and not at this senior level. Once again, the job market, you probably heard me say this before, the job market has changed and it's not going back. So if you continue to treat your job search as kind of this, side hobby, you do it when you feel like it. When you're doing it, you're clicking buttons and you're just kind of hoping for the best. I promise you, you're going to be stuck here where you are right now a lot longer than you want. So let's break down what it actually looks like to job search like someone who is going to land that 200K offer in 1 to 4 months. All right, first and foremost, you need to start treating job search as $1 million project. Because if you are aiming for 150K offer, 200K offer, 250K offer, it's not just a job that you're after. For the employer, this is a multi-6-figure investment. And over just a few years, this really quickly stacks up to $1 million investment for them in total compensation, in benefits, in salary that you will get. So I really want for you to start thinking about this as $1 million project. And if you were leading $1 million project at work, how would you treat a project like that? Would you, and I really want for you to be honest with yourself and really think about how this applies to your job search. Because if you have a big project at work, would you just look at it a few times a week when you have time? If you have time, if you have the energy, if you have the motivation, would you, my team or I have done this type of project in the past 4 years ago, 6 years ago. Let me open and look at how we did it 6 years ago and just copy paste the strategy that we used 6 years ago. And again, a lot has changed in 6 years. And just keep using what we've done before, even though it's not working. But hey, it has worked 6 years ago, so therefore it should work now. It should continue to work. So would you continue doing the same thing over and over and over again with no results, but just kind of hoping that, maybe this month we'll have a different result. Maybe this month it will stick. Would you show up to your leadership meeting and say, we're still working on this project. Yeah, fingers crossed, we'll have some progress soon. What? Insane. You would never say that to your leader. So why are you approaching your job search, which again is $1 million project, something that affects you, your health, your income, your family, your freedom? Why are you approaching your $1 million project, your own $1 million project the same way? So when our clients land offers in 2 to 4 months, here's what they do differently. They really start to treat their job search as this high stakes $1 million project, this high visibility project. So that means that they don't just say, okay, well, when I have time this week, I'll do it. When I have time this week, I'll open LinkedIn, I'll scroll, I'll see what's posted, I'll apply. So from the very, very beginning, when they start working with us, we set a very detailed 30-day plan for them. And then they know everything they're going to do after those 30 days. They get very detailed goals and dates assigned to those goals. For the duration of the program, everything for them is broken down into milestones, is broken down into smaller goals, so that every single week and every single month, they know exactly what milestones they need to hit to get interviews, to get networking meetings, to get introductions, to get further into their interview process, to get offers. They're not just thinking, okay, I'm going to apply and see what happens. They know here are the steps I need to take and milestones I need to hit to get to this result. Because any big project, to achieve it, to complete it, to be successful at work, right? You would build probably a work back schedule. So you know, okay, in order to get to this big goal at the end of the quarter, this is what we need to do this month. This is what we need to do the next month. That means that this week we need to hit this. Next week we need to hit that. So you need to think about job search the same way. Another thing that our clients do, they track what's working and what's not working. They have trackers because their plan is so specific. They can see where they're falling behind, and they can see, oh, I have done all of these things that were on my plan and I didn't get to the milestone. So let's reflect back, which we, by the way, do together every single week. We reflect on the week. Okay, what really is working for me right now? Oh, I'm a little bit behind here, so I need to dedicate more time here. So they're very, very intentional with their goals for their job search so that they actually get those offers in a couple of months. I'll give you an example. Someone in our community posted this week saying that, oh, I've been keeping track of all of my networking follow-ups. And by the way, we ask you to keep track of your networking outreach, your networking follow-ups, your networking meetings. She says, listen, I have been following up using voice notes and video notes, which is something that we teach. And she says, I've noticed that the response rate with video is much higher for me. So therefore, that's what I'm going to focus on. So do you have this level of data for your job search? And by the way, if you're just tracking the number of applications and number of interviews, that is not enough data because you don't know exactly what's working and what's not working. That's not a very useful set of data. And the most important thing here with this data, because you're tracking it, now our clients can course correct. Now this client can focus on videos over voice notes. And speaking of being intentional with their goals and milestones, they sit down every single Monday, they set goals for the week, and then every single Friday, they reflect on their week. And then every single weekend, they look at all of their numbers, they look at their progress, and they share it. So we can also see it and we can help them. So you need to do this for yourself, whether you do it with us and we help you set the system, or you set this level of project management, this $1 million project, and treating this as a $1 million project with dates, very specific goals, with time allocated to it. Collecting data, reflecting on the data, using the data to course correct. That's what a $1 million project looks like. And you know it. But you just need to start thinking of job search as that $1 million project. Because open LinkedIn every day and look at jobs posted and scroll and apply where you feel like it, or when you have time, or when you feel extra motivated because the job looks interesting. How is that a plan? That's not a plan. And there's no clear plan of how you're going to get to this role. You're just hoping, really. You're just hoping that one day it will work out, that one day there will be a role that looks good, that you will get an interview for it, and then you will be successful interview process. So the client that I mentioned earlier, who is negotiating 2 offers right now, she is also saying, hey, I have this networking meeting this week and this networking meeting. She already has 2 offers and she's continuing on her networking so that she has more in her basket. I'm thinking of the analogy of eggs in a basket. Our clients are not hoping. And I really want for you to hear that it is possible in job search to build a plan that leads to results. And yes, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, that there are factors outside of your control, specifically what's going on the employer side, who else they're interviewing, any changes that are happening on the team, etc. You can't control that, but you can control how many opportunities you're creating, how much input you have in your own job search. So it is possible to know that, okay, this is how I can create interviews. And if I have this many interviews on the books, I know that this is how many I can progress with. So I want for you to hear that job search is not something that is completely out of your hands, completely unpredictable. Yes, there are factors that are outside of your control, and you should build a plan for it. And you need to have milestones and goals every single week. And before we wrap up this first part, if your updates at the end of the week, at the end of the month with job search are, well, I have been applying, I tried reaching out, I got a few interviews, but not really much is happening right now. Imagine that's the type of update that you give your leadership team on that $1 million project, right? So start treating your job search as a $1 million project. All right, number 2, you have to get ruthlessly intentional with your time. Because if this is that $1 million project that we just talked about, how and where you spend your time matters a lot. And what I have seen time and time again is that clients that we work with who move fast, it's not that they just magically have more hours in a day. It's because they use every hour with purpose. So again, think about it this way. If you have a $1 million project at work and you have built this work back plan with milestones and goals, and it's all broken down by weeks and by months and by quarters, you are never sitting down in the morning thinking, okay, I've got an hour to dedicate to it today before, let's say, a meeting. Let's see what I can get done today. Because for most people, job search looks like, I have a little time tonight. Let me see what's posted. Oh, there's a role. Let me save it. I'll apply tomorrow when I have more time. And then tomorrow you're tired because you're tired and you feel like the job has been posted for a few days, a couple of weeks. You say, okay, I'm just going to click on apply. Maybe tomorrow I can do some outreach with this role. But then tomorrow you're tired again, or you get distracted by something else. Then let's say with interviews, you know that part of this process is to go through the interview process, right? Part of job search is interview process. And yet most people wait until they have the interview. They wait until the day before, 2 days before. And then they're scrambling, looking at what are they going to talk about. They're trying to put their stories together. But again, it's $1 million project. Why are we scrambling? Very last minute. On the other hand, when our clients sitting down to do anything job search related, because they have those very specific goals and targets and milestones, every single time they sit down to job search, they know what they're going to be working on. Not scrolling, but they have a goal. Okay, I need to book 4 networking meetings. They're looking at, okay, this week I have 4 networking meetings, so I'm going to spend the next hour prepping for those networking meetings. Or they look at, okay, I need to follow up with these 10 people so I can book 2 more networking conversations for next week. And, oh, you know what? I'm a little bit low on my leads for networking. I'm going to reach out to 20 people today and tomorrow so that I can set meetings up for next week and the week after that. They're looking at their week, and it's something that we do in the very, very beginning. We look at their schedule and we say, okay, at least twice a week, pick those days of the week, put your interview practice on your calendar. It's a recurring meeting every single week. So you don't forget, you don't skip, you don't book a dinner with friends over it. It happens no matter what. So they know that Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, I'm spending an hour here and an hour here on my interview prep. So that is what being intentional with your time looks like. That's a plan. Open LinkedIn is not intentional. It's not an intentional use of your time. See what's out there, what's posted this week is not a plan. It's not you being intentional with your time. And again, think back to you in your role, you in that 200K role. How are you going to be showing up? How do you want to be showing up for your team? How are you going to be communicating with your leadership team? There are expectations from you. And in order for you in that role to hit those expectations, you will have to be very intentional with your time. Another way you should be intentional with your time is taking interviews for jobs that you don't actually want. Because here's what I tell my clients. When you take an interview, and a lot of people say, well, I'll just do it for practice. Okay, well, even for practice, it will require research. It will require specific prep for that interview or interviews if there will be multiple rounds. It will be a few hours on top of your prep spent on actually interviewing. And the biggest thing here is your emotional energy that will be required for the prep and for you to show up in that interview. So you will be more tired. And all of that time and energy will take away from what actually matters, from you being intentional around what actually you need to be spending time on, those goals and those milestones that you know are actually taking you to the role that you want, because your time and energy are expensive. Treat it like that. Treat it like an expensive resource. If you want the employer to pay 200K to you every single year, you need to act like that person who knows that, okay, my time is expensive. And if you're working full time and you're job searching, and maybe you have a family, you have very limited resources, very limited time, you need to be even more intentional. And in the very beginning, when we start working together, we look at their calendar together and we say, okay, realistically, I need to be very real with me right now. When are you going to be doing job search? Let's look at your calendar. Maybe it's you start your workday an hour early, and it's that 60 minutes in the morning that you know you're dedicated to it. And it's 5 days a week, it's 5 hours, 5 focused hours. But again, think about it this way. If you only have those 60 minutes in the morning for job search, and you just sit down, you're like, okay, well, what am I working on today? By the time you figure out what you're working on, it's been 45 minutes and you just wasted that hour, right? It needs to be focused time. It's never, oh, what should I do today? You need to have already decided, planned for it. And when you're job searching and you're dealing with this $1 million project and your time is valuable, you're not getting distracted by your phone or Instagram notifications. 60 minutes, intentional, sit down and work on outreach, follow-ups, interview prep. This is not a side hobby. If you want a multi-six-figure outcome, you can't treat this as a hobby. And finally, number 3, you have to decide that you're doing this, that this is happening, you're getting this job in the next quarter, in the next 3 months, and you need to act accordingly. So when job seekers, for example, come into our world and they talk to us, maybe they book a call with us, the reason they're there, the reason they're watching my content, listening to the podcast, coming on a call with us, coming on a masterclass that I do, they're not doing that because everything is great. They're not doing that because they're thriving in their job search and they're getting interviews and offers left and right. They're coming to the masterclass. They're watching my content. They're booking a call with us because something is not working. And yet, when we show them, okay, well, you need a clear strategy. You need a clear plan. You need to be doing this consistently, week in and week out, day in and day out. You need to be getting feedback and showing up for that feedback. With our clients, for example, it's twice a week. And when you're doing something, it's not working, you need to iterate, you need to change. That's why you come for feedback twice a week. And we also tell them, hey, like there will be things that are uncomfortable for you. So for example, for a lot of our clients, sending out a Loom or a video note on LinkedIn is very uncomfortable in the beginning, but do it anyway. But what I hear often from job seekers when we show them, hey, here's what it really takes. It's possible. It's realistic. I see it in this market every single week in the program, but here's what it's going to take. Funny thing happens, and that is oftentimes we hear, well, okay, I got to hear that. So maybe I'll just try a little bit longer. I'll just kind of see, I've applied for a few jobs recently, so I'll see what happens with them. Okay, but what's going to change? What is going to change from what you have been doing for the last few months? You already know it's not working. It's going back to this idea in the beginning. It's $1 million project, and you're given an update to your leadership team. Here's what I've been doing. It's not working. I'm going to go and do more of that. And then let's say we ask you, okay, well, where are you getting stuck? Okay, I'm not getting enough interviews. Okay, are you getting in front of the decision makers? No, no one is responding to me. Okay, clearly that's the gap, right? You know that's the gap. I'm not getting interviews. I'm not getting in front of the decision makers. They're not responding. How do I get them to respond? How do I get to more decision makers? What do I need to do differently? Because trying a little more of what's not working doesn't solve the problem, and you know it. You want the job. You want to be successful in this. You obviously want to land this job tomorrow. Everyone says ASAP. When you keep saying that, I'll just try a little bit longer. I'll just see what happens with these last couple of applications. Oh, I have an interview actually. I have an interview on Friday. So I'll see what happens with that opportunity before I actually understand what I have been doing incorrectly in the past and what needs to change. But then my question to you is, okay, well, have you had any interviews in the last 3 months? Yes. Did they lead to an offer? No. So are you going to go ahead and just repeat the same stories that clearly didn't get you to an offer before? And you'll have the same approach to this next interview process, right? You really need to, for yourself, commit. Okay, I'm doing this. This is happening. I'm making this, no matter what, I'm going to get this offer in 3 months. So truly, if your life depended on it, on this $1 million project being successful, what would you do? How would you show up? How and what you would change in your approach? Would you really, truly look for those gaps? Okay, not getting in front of the decision makers. When I get interviews, I'm not successful. Okay, how do I solve for that? If you know how to solve for it yourself, great. Though if you knew, you would have already done it. That's something to really understand, is that if you knew how to get to this result, to this offer, to this 200K offer in 1 to 4 months, you would have already done it. That's an interesting thought, right? You would have already done it. So what needs to change? You need to step back. You need to figure out what's missing. You need to bring in support, because that's what you would do in your $1 million project at work, right? If you're reflecting on, okay, we're halfway through this project, we're nowhere close to the milestones that we need to be hitting and to where we need to be. So what is missing? What are the gaps? If we don't know how to solve for those gaps ourselves, we need to bring in help. We need to bring in specialists, consultants who know how to do this. We need to bring in support. You would solve in your job, in that $1 million project, you would solve for this breakdown. So how are you solving for this breakdown yourself? And somehow in our careers, we don't do that. We just kind of all stay in this limbo of half trying, half hoping that something will click. I kind of call it half energy. Half energy gets you half results. Why do I say half energy? Because let's say in a live masterclass, people would tell me, okay, well, I tried networking. I reached out to 3 people and nothing happened. Well, yes, that's not enough. Second of all, if you are reaching out to more people than 3 and no one is responding, then it's your messaging, right? How do you need to change your messaging? You probably have your stories for interviews prepared, but then again, you use the same stories over and over again, but you're not getting an offer. And I keep hearing from some of you that, hey, I keep going to the last round and I don't get an offer. And you're so frustrated, which is frustrating. But what did you learn from it? What are you going to do different next time so that your outcome is different? So clearly what you're doing, the stories or how you're telling them, is not working. So you need feedback, you need practice, you need to change your strategy. But people tell me, it's okay, like I'll just keep going. And you say that, yes, I want this result, I want this new job ASAP, but are you committed? Do you really want it? Because how you spend your time, how you set your goals for job search, how you reflect on your progress, how you adjust what's not working, whether you're getting help because you're not sure what needs to change yourself. That's what shows me that you actually are committed to it. And I will say this, I've actually seen this with clients as well. And clients in the program, they have the strategy. We give them the plan. We give them goals and milestones, and we assign dates to it. But sometimes, even though they join the program and they thought they have committed, they thought they're ready, but sometimes what I notice is that, I don't think they are actually doing the steps. I don't think they're doing the work. They're skipping steps. They're distracted. They're half energying. I just made a new word, half energying the process. And they don't get the results. And we push them. We sometimes call them out. Sometimes we have a conversation. Sometimes they do it on their own, because the second they shift this approach and they say, you know what, Anna, I know you set a networking challenge for me month one. I didn't really stick to it. I'm going to listen to you, and I'm actually going to complete it this month. I'm actually going to go all out and focus on it. And guess what? Once they commit to it, everything changes. They come back 2 weeks later and they say, oh, I'm leading this meeting and this person introduced me to this person. This first networking meeting wasn't really great for me because I didn't feel like it was very natural. But now that I've done 10, it's great, because now they're actually intentional with their time. They're treating this like $1 million project. They have a goal and they're working towards that goal, and they're showing up. That's a big thing that I see with clients. Once they show up and they get feedback and then they iterate, that's when they see the results, because they decided, okay, enough is enough. I'm not going to get distracted anymore. I'm going to prioritize this. I'm deciding this is happening this quarter. And that's when the strategy starts working. That's when the traction picks up. And that's when the offers happen every single freaking time. So if you're listening to this and you're stuck, really ask yourself, am I all in on this? Have I actually decided that this quarter I'm doing it, that this quarter I'm landing this offer? What are you going to do different this quarter from last quarter so that the result is different? It's not going to be by working harder or applying for more jobs. You have to commit and you start acting like it. All right, friends, that is it for today's episode. I kind of got fired up in today's episode. I hope that after listening to this episode, you walk away and you really start thinking about your job search as $1 million project. So when in doubt, you always go back to this idea of, this is $1 million project. What do I do? In my job, in my 200K job, what would I do with this $1 million project if this is the challenge that I faced? How would I treat it? How would I spend my time? Where would I spend my time? How would I track my progress? How would I track what's not working? How would I know what to change if something is not working? Really start thinking about it. This is $1 million project. All right, that is it for today. I will see you in the next episode.